Welcome to another edition of the First and Short podcast with JJ and Goose. I'm JJ, thanks for listening. Today we talk about Chiefs left tackle Eric Winston calling out Chiefs fans for cheering while Matt Cassle laid on the ground after suffering a concussion against the Baltimore Ravens. Gustin, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, my first thought is he actually plays right tackle, but I'll excuse that. Second, I'm kind of conflicted. When I first heard it, I thought, this guy's absolutely right. This is awful. It's terrible. But I've heard some other opinions about it, and while I still think there's certainly something morally wrong with cheering someone getting hurt, I have a respect for the fan who pays his money to support the team, to stand there in the crowd and say and do what he wants, express their opinion in the way they feel they want to express it. I mean, let's be honest. If there are no fans, there's no Kansas City Chiefs, and Eric Winston isn't getting paid millions of dollars to protect Cassle. Cassle, in turn, isn't being paid millions of dollars to throw the ball down the field. Cheering somebody who's getting knocked out because you're excited that the second string guy is coming in, Brady Quinn, certainly looks and sounds awful, and I wouldn't personally cheer the injury of somebody, but I can understand how a fan base that has had to sit through several years of Cassle and unperforming teams could be frustrated in that moment. And I don't think that they were cheering Castle's injury as much as they were cheering the entrance of Brady Quinn and the possibility that they might be alleviated of these losing times. So while I understand why Winston was upset and was turned off by that, as many were, and as bizarre as it seems to cheer someone's injury, I'm going to back the fans' right to express, their viewpoint of the team, because after all, the fan, and especially the fan who's willing to pay the money to go to the stadium and watch the game, is the reason, that this whole controversy could exist in the first place.
I'm just saying I wouldn't be cheering if I knew that Brady Quinn was about to be the quarterback of my football team.
Seems odd.
I don't care who your starting quarterback is. I'd be upset knowing that Brady Quinn is the one coming in, because Brady Quinn's not better than many NFL quarterbacks. I couldn't name any starting quarterbacks that Brady Quinn is better than, except for maybe Mark Sanchez the last couple of games, maybe, but I doubt it. But you're right. But if Eric Winston felt that way, and I think he has the right, and you're right, the fans do have the right also, who paid a lot of money to go see a bad football team. I think that Eric Winston is right, though. He says, one of his quotes was, "We are not gladiators, and this is not the Roman Colosseum. This is a game." He's absolutely right. Look, if Bountygate taught us anything, it's that the NFL really doesn't want us to be happy when we see injuries on the field.
Well, my counter to that, and he is right, they're not gladiators in the Coliseum, but NFL football is the next closest thing. It is a sport played by men, bigger, larger, faster, and stronger than anybody you, me, or most people know personally. They are gigantic men who are running into each other at full speed, and I don't care what Eric Winston says or what Roger Goodell does. The sport by its nature is brutal. It is made for grown men to run in each other and slam each other as fast and as hard as they can and create collisions more devastating and violent than we can imagine.
But that is not the goal of the game. The goal of the game is not to knock out the opponent.
It's not?
It's not.
It's not?
No,
This
is not UFC. This is not boxing.
Oh, it absolutely is. You don't think safeties have been trained for years to lead with their helmets because they're trying, to win a tickling competition? They are absolutely trying to lay these guys out and to hurt them. I absolutely believe this. They will never say that. But when a defensive player plants his head on another man's head, he is trying to hit him as hard as he can. And I don't think he's trying to cause life injury, but he is trying to make him feel the pain. When a receiver goes over the middle and a linebacker plants him, he wants to leave him with the message, think twice before you come over the middle again. It is in the game. Teddy Roosevelt in the late 19th century when football was coming under, late 19th century when football was coming under attack because people were dying, he defended the sport because he wanted America's young men to stay tough in a time when there was no major war. Football is a man's game, and it's violent. And if you don't like that, and I think as we're learning, many Americans are starting to be turned off by that violence. You can't have the game. You can't have football and hits like Matt Cassle took the other day. You can't have one or the other. They are mutually together. Football and contact and brutal contact and concussions will always be a part of the game. Now,
But is it fair? Hold on, going back to our original point. Is it fair that as a Kansas City Chiefs player, you have to take that from your own fan cheering when your quarterback got knocked out?
Oh.
He is their quarterback.
It's bizarre, and I imagine if you're Matt Cassle, I don't know if he knew what was going on at the time, but I'm sure, obviously he knows about it now. I'm sure that doesn't feel good. I'm sure it sucks to be booed by your own fans. And by the way, it wasn't, or being cheered when you get hurt, it wasn't the entire crowd, as he said in his statement that day. In fact, he's even come out and said it, could have been 7,000, could have been 700. Either way, it's too much. And I understand that. But as badly as it feels to get cheered by your fans, sorry, you're a grown adult. You chose to play football. Matt Cassle could be an accountant right now if he wanted. Eric Winston could be a firefighter. He could be anything he wanted. They chose to play football, a sport in the public eye, that's supported by fanatics. That's what fans short for. And, as bizarre and as strange as the situation is, that's what you're opening yourself up to.
Look, it's twice as embarrassing for a guy like Eric Winston, whose job is out there to protect the guy who's laying on his back unconscious.
Well, he said, if you want to boo me for my performance, if you want to boo Cassle for his performance, that's okay. But where he feels you're drawing the line, where you're crossing the line, I should say, is cheering an injury. And I do think there's something morally wrong with that. And I think if you are someone who cheers for injuries in games or hopes that opposing players will get hurt, or maybe, in this case, your own starting quarterback will get hurt for the backup to come in, I do think you as a person should step back and evaluate where sports stand in your life and how much you care and how much weight you put in your team winning and losing. But on the other hand, I don't know as a player you should get that upset or turned off by it.
I feel like he just felt that it was disrespectful, which it was, and I think he was more embarrassed more than anything else.
Well, yeah, I heard him say that he'd never been more embarrassed to be a football player. Again, quit. It's a choice, and it's a choice held by a select few of individuals. Me and you couldn't play professional football. It is for a special class of people, who are born with a very specific set of skills. But he didn't have to do this, and he gets rewarded handsomely for doing so. So as far as I'm concerned, collateral damage. It comes with a job. You don't necessarily have to like it, but if it turns you off that much, quit. Retire tomorrow.
So do you think Eric Winston regrets saying anything in the first place?
No, absolutely not. And I don't necessarily think that he should regret saying anything. If that's how he felt and that's how he feels, he should. It's a free country. He has a right to express his opinion, and I'm not mad at Eric Winston, and I can see where Eric Winston's coming from, but ultimately, it's the fans who push the product. If it's not for the eyeballs in the stadium and the dollars that they're handing over, there is no football. You're not making the $1 million check. Matt Cassle is rewarded handsomely for his injury. He makes over $10 million a year. I'm sorry. Deal with it. And I know he works really hard. I don't think most people factor in the amount of work and sacrifice that goes into an NFL career, and I think if most people knew that, maybe they wouldn't want to do it either. But there is a paycheck at the end of the day, and it is quite handsome. So if you get cheered when you get hurt or you get booed when you play bad, tough.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that's a good point to wrap up on. So thanks for listening to another edition of the First and Short podcast with JJ and the Goose. We'll catch you next time.